Right, legends. This is a bit of a teaching video on Monday's range, and there's many uses of Monday's range. One can be like your entries, one can be targets, one can be exits. It doesn't really matter. It also can be used as to see the tone of the market for the week. Is it going to be range bound or not? Okay, let's get into it. Before that, let me just put out this flag. It's going to be distracting to me. So let's use this week, okay? So let's start with this week's Monday's range. This is the example I'm going to use, and maybe quickly throw in New Zealand yen, and then it'll make sense as to just overlapping why we took the trade scalp earlier. So it's Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So let's mark out Monday's high, Monday's low, and the midpoint. Okay. So Monday's high, 3044.6. 3044.6. But before that, just as a reminder, you don't use it on its own. We know that it's like KSR here as well. Okay, so from the videos, this is our range high. This level here, whatever it is, our range high. Okay, so we always mark out or frame it around a KSR level, which is here. So I'm gonna remove that, and so we know that's that there before we start drawing out in the middle of nowhere. Monday's low. Okay, and this low comes in at 3024.7. 3024.7. Okay, and then we'll mark out the midpoint. So the midpoint will come in at so this is not going to be focused on entries, okay? This is just going to be focused on targets and how you can keep breaking it down further and further, um, you know, as targets, which can help bias, okay? So it's got multiple use cases, okay? There, that's done, okay? So start of the week is come down, you know, it deviated it here, came down, didn't quite touch it, deviated it there, deviated it there, and then today we had the breakout. Okay, it's NFP day. It is what it is. I didn't catch this, but okay. So what I want to use is, okay, one way of using it is, okay, say it broke out. How I did a video on profit objectives. Okay, this is a video on using this Monday's range for profit objectives. Okay, so if I take that line and draw it across, the chart post is probably self-explanatory anyway, but this is just putting in video form there. And as you can see, it topped out there. So like we know that hindsight, okay, we didn't know at the time, but it's a way of viewing it. Another way would have been like using fib extensions from the higher to low, 127.2. So you got 127.2 lining up with this confluence, okay. Another way is breaking it down into the mid range. As you can see, the mid range has been pivotal, okay. We've got here, 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 okay. So we know that mid-range pivotal. So let's break that down now. Let's break the mid-range down into this. So if we look, how much was the deviation above here? The moment you start seeing the halfway point and the midway point causing highs and lows, you know the range you're using is correct, okay? So here, halfway point capped it. If I was to draw this across, pull this across, did halfway point cap it here, it was used as SR here, okay? Another way is using it halfway more, so bring this across, okay, and so I can see the dot here. So if I do that there, so that's just halfway point. So if I used to do this and this, you can see the halfway point is a natural SR level, okay. So it's lined up there. So say for example, say you are long, for whatever example, you can use that as like a target objective, okay. And that's the main point I want you to put that across, okay. So does that make sense? So the main point theme for this is using the Monday's range as target objectives, okay. And if you're unsure, well, once you start seeing, so once Monday's unfolded, okay, you don't know all this then. It's normally in the middle of the week, and once you start seeing the midpoint being respected, you can start marking out halfway points and halfway of that as well to start seeing more stuff, okay. Did that make sense to everybody? I'll do one more example. Okay, so with this, you're just gonna have to find your own examples. They don't always work, but it's like a confluence thing. Okay, so this example is like the New Zealand yen little scalp we took and perfectly to our target there. Okay, so if we use Monday's range for that, so the 21st. In this case, I'm gonna use last week's Monday's range. So what you can do as an example, uh, drag it across to other weeks. So 21st is here. So this was last week's Monday's range. This week's Monday range didn't really give us much clarity, but using last week's one did. So roughly drawing that. And just to, before we begin, what was the range that was capping the market? It was here. This was the weekly range. That's already explained from this week. Okay, so we know that that's a KSR. Remember, it's gotta be in line with the KSR level. Okay, those are the high probability plays. So let's break this down now. So at this point, and then I can mark out a halfway point of that. Let's do that as well. And let's do it in a thin color. So the reason why I'm using this one is because this is price hadn't broken it. Okay, price was just kept between that, and it was proven this week when it deviated, it got back above it, found resistance. Last week's Monday's low, it consolidated here for ages before it did the big rip. But you can see last week's Monday's range had been capped. Again, you're gonna have to practice this. This is just a basic blueprint. You can add stuff, take away stuff, whatever you want to do. Okay, so in today's live trading session, we used the intraday range. Okay, and this is just a basic example of here was our target there, but if you were to hold a position, okay, and when you start noticing, okay, it deviates Monday's range, and as soon as it gets back below it, that's an exit sign. Okay, so it's deviated it here, got back below it. This would have been, if you had that small position left over, this would have been your exit sign. Yes, later on it did go above it, but you could see that every time you started to deviate it, it couldn't. So if it was a continuation play, this is Monday's range. What do we look for? A bullish market structure pattern on top of Monday's high. So if it was to do, for example, this and then break above it, and that would have been a sign that it wanted to go for these highs here. So the fact that it got back below here, all bets are off for longs then, unless it breaks back above it. Okay, so that was just a quick example of how Monday's range, in confluence with this target and the reasons we gave in the live session today, so which is the 1st of November's live trading session. This is confluence is using as profit target. Okay, and that's it.